Hey, welcome back, everybody, to episode 15 of the Cup Cloud podcast, the podcast that features conversations over all things coffee, pop culture, trends, social media more. It's a hard thing to say. I'm always saying it. Welcome back, Shonda. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
We're back behind the mic here. We did have a couple weeks where we took some time off just because, well, like we always say, life just throws curveballs. But we're finally back into it. And one of the things that we kind of dealt with when we were taking a break, whether it was a month here or a couple weeks here, is we kind of dove into the world. And this is kind of what focuses on our main topic, which is, pretty much what's cooking. And we're going to be talking about the deals and what you get on the whole thing with meal delivery services and stuff like that.
That's
so
right.
we'll get into that. But the thing that we wanted to really talk about was what it really takes to kind of like reformulate everything that you do when you come home from work, when you obviously were a cook, so you make really good food. So it was a real good change when we kind of decided to take on this meal delivery service. So I'm going to let you talk a little bit about it, but only just from a small talk point of view, though. We do a lot of cooking in our house. So why do you think all of a sudden we just decided to try this meal service?
Yeah, that was an interesting thing for me because I really didn't want to try it. It was kind of driven by the fact that groceries have been so expensive.
Right.
And so normally I would have been absolutely no, but due to food being at a really high cost right now, I was like, what the heck? Let's try it. So
right.
Every time we go out to eat, it costs $15 to $20 a person.
More
for our family.
I'm going to say more because $15 or $20 a person is now considered like Jimmy John's, Subway, these type places. But we got really sick and tired over the last maybe 6 to 8 months paying high prices for these meals. We had a conversation with your sister. Your sister was doing this as well and kind of put us onto this company, and we decided to start trying it. And I actually thought it was fun at first. I really did. And we'll get into some of the details of this.
Right.
But overall, just kind of starting this conversation on this, eating fresh and healthy food is obviously costing more and more daily to eat on a higher level of food. You go to Whole Foods, Trader Joe's and those type places, that food's expensive.
Well, when you buy, healthy foods, the cost of the food's more expensive. So sometimes you think, okay, we can go eat out. Maybe it's more cost effective to eat out. Right. But what we're finding more and more is you finally pay to go eat out, and then you're disappointed in the quality of food that you paid for. And so, it was time for a change. Yeah,
and I think people are tired of paying a lot of money for food that's just not high quality. And that's been true always. I don't think that's a big revelation of anything new, but I think with the high cost of foods, I think what you're seeing with high cost of foods though now at these places is poor service. Mm-hmm. So poor service, and then also cleanliness, and then that's a whole other probably a conversation. But one thing about us is when we go out to eat, cleanliness is really important.
It is.
And I can't stand eating at places that are dirty. I don't think anybody else does. When we're talking about this kind of transition and or going from, meal delivery services, what do you think was the popularity of all this? Like, what do you think really drove this?
I actually think COVID drove this, just like it's driven, much of everything else. It was a way to get, healthy food delivered to your home so that you didn't have to go out and eat. And that's how they advertise it. So there, you've got some really big players in the game right now. You've got HelloFresh, you have Home Chef, Every Plate. Every time you go on Facebook, you're seeing one of these companies and even more that are joining in.
Right. I think they're advertising mostly on social media too, because they're kind of hitting the healthy market. They're tagging everything on TikTok, Instagram, and they're really putting it and pushing this stuff to people who are trying to just try a new healthy lifestyle. And I think that's kind of deceiving. And we'll get into that too, because we figured these meals aren't exactly always the healthiest meals, but they're easy to put together, and they're very lucrative, and they're very, very attractive, especially for social media.
Yeah, the box is attractive, and they tell you, we'll give you all the ingredients and the instructions, and you can make, delicious home cooked meals in your home. It's easy. Anybody can do it.
Right. And they provide all the ingredients, right?
Yeah, everything.
Yeah. So all the ingredients are in that box. You don't have to go run to the store looking for anything, or if you forgot something, you pretty much can make that entire meal completely out of that box, right?
Right. And then they advertise to you these great discounts. So they put it as you're paying, only $1.50 a meal or something with this great discount. And so, we don't eat out frequently, but we felt the rising cost of food in our grocery budget. So
yeah, of course, even for three of us.
So when they advertise these low cost meals, you're like, what the heck? Let's give it a try.
So you as an experienced cook, you can cook, you can bake. All our friends can attest to anything that you can make. How did you feel about trying a food service? Were you kind of embarrassed about it? Did you feel like you weren't doing, like, did you kind of feel like you were letting your family down, like not giving us like your food? So what were your feelings on that?
No, I was more skeptical of the quality of the food because I can cook on my own. I already make delicious, good meals at home. I kind of looked at it as I don't need somebody else's help. And I don't need to pay for a service to basically grocery shop for me when I'm capable of doing all of that myself.
Well, and I think also too is for somebody who is such a good cook, I think you're a little bit more skeptical about what you're doing, or these recipe cards, are they kind of like shortcutting things? Are you getting quality ingredients?
Right.
There's a lot of things that go in with this, but I think the real benefit to this is making it for when people come home from work, people that are busy. Your sister was a good example. She's
right.
by herself, so she can come home and make one of these meals. She can pretty much get 3 or 4 meals out of one box.
Yeah, it depends on what you subscribe to. Like she would do a 2-person meal, and her plan was to have one for dinner and then pack one to be a lunch for sometime later that week.
Okay, Shauna, let's talk a little bit about how exactly do these meal delivery services work?
So, my sister recommended it to us, and usually it works by referral because when somebody refers you to the service, they get a kickback as well. So not only are they able to share a coupon with you, but then usually they get an extra, $20 back to credit towards their own meal purchases.
Okay, so
there's a perk.
There's a perk and incentive. So if I'm signing up for your service and I'm 2 months into it, but during that 2 months, I share out a few things to my friends and they're joining this, then I'm getting kickbacks as in money, or am I getting free meals?
You're getting credits towards future meals.
Okay.
And yes, you get a lot of kickbacks. So it's kind of encouragement for you to share with your friends.
So promo coupons,
right?
Things like that. Okay.
So my sister recommended that we try Every Plate. She shared with us some of her recipe cards. The food looked pretty good. She said she really liked it. And she gave me a coupon worth over $100 in free food. So when you started, then you already had some credits. So you weren't really feeling like, hey, I'm going to go into this spending a lot of money. I'm going to start this. I'm getting discounted. Well, what's to lose? Right. With as expensive as food's been, you really don't have anything to lose. And that's the big thing. There's no risk involved in trying it. You get $100 for free. You can skip weeks when you want. You can cancel anytime. Why not? Let's give it a try. We had to sign up and choose a subscription level. So we have 3 people in our household, but they don't go by odd numbers. So we had to pick 2 or 4 people. Right. So we picked a 4-person subscription and tried the lowest quantity of meals per week, which is 3.
So we did 3 meals per week, 3 people. We were in the kitchen. We were making stuff. And it always seemed funny because when we were done, we actually had one exact meal left.
Right, we did.
That's one thing I was pretty
portioned.
It was pretty portion controlled out, and then I was able to be the lucky one to take that one to work, unless it was really bad.
Right, but our plan, from the get go was let's get a protein meal, which is something with meat and veggie, and then let's get a pasta meal, and then let's try something new that maybe we haven't tried before.
Right.
So that was kind of fun.
Right. And I think one thing too is going through the recipe cards, because the recipe cards were very attractive. It had a gorgeous photo on there, and we did Every Plate. Right. So it had a nice photograph of the meal, and it had everything laid out really easy. It wasn't complicated at all. So the thing with it for me was when I first started looking at them it was things I would never make on my own anyways, but they looked good.
And you get a nice box with all the ingredients in there and the pictures on the card and then step-by-step instructions. And it was something easy that our daughter could follow and do it on her own too. So, that was, something that was fun for her to be participating in this while we were experimenting with this meal delivery service. That's
another thing I was going to say too. To me, this was really good for somebody who maybe had a little bit of experience cooking, but who wasn't like a really good cook, but it kind of taught them the basics of making. I kind of noticed excuse me, it always had you making a sauce.
Right.
Some kind of sauce that went with all the ingredients that they had. And it seemed like every meal kind of revolved around that, but it was actually really good.
Right. It can, if you use the service to be a learning experience, especially if you're new to cooking or, you want to, try some different, food options for dinner, I think it's great to give one of these services a try. And we can go into that a little bit later, what other opinions that I have to share. But I thought it was, good going into it. And then I found out, my coupon wasn't really off the first box.
The first box that you ordered?
Right. My coupon was divvied up over an 8-week subscription. So I only got 50% off my first box. And then I got reduced discounts as, the weeks came. So just be aware that when you sign up for your services using a discount coupon, that, your coupon isn't all up front. It might be split out over a period of weeks.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because I know one thing people have complained about, and I've seen people talk about this on TikTok and Instagram on other services, was you get involved in these meal service plans and then it's almost hard to get out of them. It's like
very hard to get out.
It's like a timeshare. It's like you cannot get out of it because every time that you go to like cancel your subscription, they're like, well, here's $100. So then you go use another $100 for their food. But it's
coming up, I'm going to tell you why we couldn't get out of it. But, if I could go back rather than being enticed by the $100 in free food, if your friends offer you a free box of food, which is one meal to try, I would go with that option instead of the bigger discount that's more enticing. Because with the single box of free food, you get that free box up front, and then you can cancel anytime after that.
Yeah, and I think another thing to note too was our location. So we talk a little bit about where we live. We live in Phoenix, Arizona, Glendale, Arizona, actually, but it is extremely hot here. And I don't remember, did we start this in the beginning of the summer?
Yeah, we received several of our boxes over the summer and the packing materials
and we had
Arizona heat really didn't get along. But, think about it. We had how many days of 115 degree weather?
We did. We had a good July, but I was working from home a lot during then. We did actually schedule this to be delivered on the day that I was working from home. However, I think what we were dealing with was, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about it, but we were dealing with a lot of poor quality of packaging, not necessarily the food itself. It was just the way that it was packed, and it wasn't really convenient. There were some other issues there, but a lot of it dealt with the heat. And then I think you were going to talk a little bit about the customer service that we dealt with on that. So go ahead.
And the one meal box where everything was pretty much melted and ruined, customer service was excellent. We were offered a full refund for the shipment, but the refund was issued as a credit.
There you go.
Okay, so here's a note to all of our listeners. So your credits cannot be used until you're out of your promo period. Our promo period was 8 weeks. So you had to wait 8 weeks to get your credit for your meal box that was ruined.
So this is every plate. So we don't know if other meal services are like this, but I think they do all run the same. Matter of fact, some of these are owned by the same.
I see a lot of similarities between products. So yeah, I would wonder if maybe they all work together somehow.
Okay, Shauna, let's talk a little bit about what entices us to sign up and, how to use these services, or what's the benefit of using these services that were just so new to us.
Right. They have a lot of selling points to really, grab people on social media. And, some of those we've already, talked about, but they advertise these simple, easy to prepare meals. They advertise the cost savings, how you can reduce your grocery bills and eating out. And also one of the things that attracted me is they advertise that it's less food waste because they're sending you smaller quantities of prepackaged food. So food waste is one of the, biggest things about, cooking at home is if you don't finish everything that, you've prepared, where's it going to go?
You're talking about leftovers, like just you cook a lasagna, you have half it in the refrigerator, then you go toss the other half away. You just wasted $20.
No, what I do is I put it in a container in the refrigerator to eat it later that week, and then it sits in the refrigerator for over a week, and then it gets tossed out.
Right, and I think that's what this meal service was probably trying to kind of do, which is you cook your meal, you eat pretty much 90% of it if you're a family of 4, and you get rid of everything. Now, however,
right, so you don't have food waste.
Right, but I know some of those recipes called for like tomatoes, right? It called for like 2 cups of tomatoes. I would cut the tomatoes up, and literally they would send you pretty much 2 cups of tomatoes. You might have had 1 left over. They were very small, and everything was packaged very nicely. And to me, I think it was a social media. It was very, very attractive on social media watching people prepare these meals, because we were watching a few of them. Then their TikToks and things. And of course, they're all in these beautiful kitchens, and they're cutting up their little boxes of vegetables and their perfect amounts of stuff. And it looked attractive, but it did look attractive to me too, because I wasn't wasting food.
And that's something that I liked about it.
Yeah.
So instead of having to decide what to eat on your own and figuring out which recipe you're going to use and going to the grocery store and all of that, when you order your meals, everything's delivered to you.
Right.
You get all of the ingredients, you get the card. It does tell you a few things that you might have to have from home, but pretty much everything is packaged and sent to you that you need to prepare the meal.
It with very little waste afterwards, because I know for sure, like when we got the onions or the garlic, I'll use a garlic example. So one of the meals called for 4 little cloves of garlic. They send you literally this little tiny ball of baby thing of garlic, but it's exactly enough for what you need. And you might have a little bit of leftover here and there, but that's one thing that really attracted me to it, was the fact that I wasn't wasting food. But you know, if you're planning on, and we wrote this down as one of our supporting ideas, and the reason why I want to talk about it is because when you stick to the meal plan, or you decided to, you know, make this meal, you stick to it, you're going to use everything that box sent you. Now, when you go to a grocery store and you do your normal shopping, I found, you know, the food service comparing to that is the expense that you're wasting. So, for example, you're going to make tacos. You go to a grocery, you want to use a, you know, handful of onions.
You got to buy the whole onion.
You're buying the whole onion and you're wasting it. However, this food service, though, in the box, it gave you the onion, but the onion was very, very small.
Right.
It was like everything was miniaturized.
Which was perfect
cool
for what you needed to prepare.
Right.
But I found actually that this food service was increasing my expenses, because I would still go to the grocery store and still do my regular shopping, even though I knew I had these meals coming. And what I should have done is not bought anything extra and basically planned, okay, we're eating these meals and we don't need to have anything as a backup, or, you know, in case the meal didn't work out.
Right. But I think that's because that's the cook in you that always wants to be prepared to make a meal on the fly. And I think that's a good thing. But I think if you're subscribing to a meal service, you either commit to it or you don't, because the food that they send you in the box isn't going to last long.
No, it won't.
Especially the way they send it to you. And so, you know, that's one of the big issues there. But you were going to talk a little bit, you mentioned earlier about packaging and the waste.
Right. One of the things I wanted to mention real quick, though, is that this service helped us reduce actually eating out, dining out, because we had committed to 3 meals at home. And so instead of like going out to, you know, pick up, you know, takeout, you know, we committed to go ahead and prep these meals. So that was a good thing.
I agree with that. I think for sure when we knew we had these meals here, we didn't want to waste them.
Right.
The service is not exactly cheap. It's convenient, but it was something that we were like, let's just skip it. We'll make that meal some other time. So one of those things I think you think about is, you know, the comparison of, you know, did this affect your budget in a positive way or a negative way? What would you say overall?
Well, that's what I was saying.
Right.
I intended for it to be, you know, positive and reduce the cost of food each week. But in actuality, I ended up still spending my regular amount at the grocery store. So I was actually increasing what I was spending on food.
Good point.
And that's one of the things that, you know, led me to eventually cancel this service.
Yeah.
So one of the big issues for me was the packaging waste. So this service advertised about a reduction in food waste, which is wonderful and great. Instead of that big onion you mentioned, you get a little onion, perfect. But the amount of packaging it took to get that little bit of food to us, that was, you know, more than I wanted to see. So you had the giant boxes, all of the freezer packs to keep it cold, and all of the boxes inside the boxes with the different food items in there. To me, the packaging waste was a lot.
It was a lot. And I also felt like, when I was opening the box, it was just a mess of ingredients all tossed in there. Like I mean, you think in the things you see, here's the thing. you watch one of these videos on social media, somebody on TikTok's making one of these meals. They got the nice little box sitting on the kitchen counter. They have all the ingredients all nicely laid out, and it looks really attractive. When you get your box in real life, you open it up and it's just everything is thrown in there.
Right.
However,
and I had to divide them up.
That's the next thing I was going to say is, and we'll talk about it too, is it was a lot of work to go through the box of 3 meals and separate all these ingredients so they were all in their individual box ready for the preparing or the cooking of it.
Right. And, just getting us the food took, 2 to 3 large boxes, the packing materials, freezer bags, that frozen cellulose material, which sometimes leaked all over everything. If it did leak, then I had to wash all the produce and everything to get that material off of it.
Well, they claim that the bags and the freezer bags in there were all recyclable, but do you empty out the contents? We didn't know what to do with the stuff.
That's just it. Those large cellulose bags are technically recyclable because you can empty out the cellulose material and then take the bag to one of like your local grocery store where they accept bags for recycling. That's a lot of work.
Right.
Most people probably aren't going to do that.
Well, in the freezer bag too, we had one break. So you can go ahead and tell that story.
Well, that's what I was just saying. It was just slimy and gross, and I ended up having to wash that stuff off of everything that was in the box. And so as you can imagine, I wasn't very happy about it. Today's short shot is for the Bialetti Mocha Express, the original Italian coffee maker. Join us next episode as we talk about this powerful little brewer found in every Italian kitchen. Not only does it make good coffee, but it makes great iced coffee too. Short shots are for products we actually use and recommend to our listeners. They are not sponsored advertisements.
Okay, so what did we gain from trying these services then?
I thought we had a lot of fun spending time in the kitchen together. I think that was a real positive for trying out this service. We got to prep the food, standing there, chopping, following directions, a lot of talking and, just having time together. So there was an entertainment factor to it.
I think to me, what I liked about it, and I've not cooked a lot, but over COVID, you taught me a lot about cooking and, we did really well during COVID. So I think when we started doing this last summer, one thing for me, the biggest positive was being in there with you, and we had aprons on, we were making the meals. It was a lot of fun. And then actually our daughter would do one on her own one night. And you and I were sitting on the couch watching baseball or something, and our daughter's in there fixing the meal entirely herself. That was really cool. But a real positive for me was just bringing the joy of being together in the kitchen instead of relying on going out for entertainment. And that's what we were doing. We've done that for 30 years. Through college and everything, we're always going out to eat, to be entertained. But we kind of taught ourselves with this meal service that the entertainment is with you in the kitchen with your spouse, having fun, drinking some wine. And it was really fun. It
was a lot of fun. Yeah. That was one of the things I really enjoyed about it. And I thought that they had, some really good meal choices. And so they were resourceful as far as the ingredients. So like, if one recipe said it called for ginger, then you got enough ginger for the rest of the recipes that were used that week. And, that made it nice, to have everything that you needed without having to,
Oh, for multiple meals.
Right.
And one thing I think was cool too is we never ran out of an ingredient. Like everything that they said that they were sending was always there.
Right. And that's what I was getting at. So like sometimes if you go look up your own recipe and you're like, oh, I'm going to make this. And then you're in the process of making it and you're like, I forgot to buy ginger root. Then you're running back up to the store to get something. Whereas this, everything was kind of there, which is awesome.
Right. It's all conveniently packaged up.
And, I consider myself a good cook and a baker. And, I even learned some things from these meals that I went in very skeptical, keep in mind. But, I came out of it. There were some things that I really enjoyed. And, one of the things that I really like the best is most of these meals include oven roasted vegetables.
Yeah, we did a lot of that.
So, yes, you have to chop and prepare all your vegetables, but your vegetables roast in the oven while you're doing the rest of your meal. It's easy and it's healthy.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed all the chopping. That's one thing I enjoyed about cooking probably from the beginning. I would always ask Shauna, hey, can I go in there and chop up stuff? For me, it was kind of nice practicing too, because they would always give you a little bit more like, the onions or whatever. So
you practice the quick
yeah, I
chopping.
can practice the chopping. And I did that like YouTube where I was watching Jamie Oliver train people with knives. And that was a lot of fun for me to do that. So,
and one of the things I just wanted to mention for everybody listening is like if you prepare a tray of vegetables, and I'm talking, your broccoli, carrots, peppers, even mushrooms, whatever, and you put it on a cookie sheet in the oven at 425 for 20 to 30 minutes. Basically, all you do is drizzle the top with olive oil, some salt and pepper, and you've got a real healthy batch of vegetables that can go with all kinds of meals. They can go with, pasta meals. They can go with like Chinese food meals. They can go with a side of steak. It's a really great option to start eating healthy.
Yeah, it also got me to eat a few vegetables and stuff that I normally don't eat. So like on that roasted pan, we were throwing on that yellow squash and zucchini, and we threw broccoli on there, and I can eat broccoli as long as it's small. I can't eat big chunks of broccoli. So for me, having that big pan loaded with all those vegetables, you put the olive oil on there and the salt and pepper, it was really attractive looking, but it actually was really good.
Right.
And then again, you're not eating, you're not dipping it in cheese or dipping it in other things. It's just oven roasted, which I'm assuming it's a lot more healthier. So
right, and so that's a takeaway I have. I'll probably use that a lot, with future meals. One of the other things that was different for me, and I know this is surprising, but it's just moving your oven racks around for different types of cooking. So
for their directions.
Yeah, so it's easy just to leave, the rack in the middle of the oven, but when it came time to broil and stuff like that, they move the rack up, and so there's a lot of that with some of these meals, which was kind of cool to do things differently.
One thing I always think about was the sauces, and you and I were talking about those too. So go ahead, I'll let you talk about that. I didn't want you to forget about that.
Well, all of these meals include different sauces, especially sauces for some of the meats and some reductions and stuff like that. And so that was one thing we gained out of trying the service, how easy it is to make a little sauce to put on your pork chops instead of just having a plain pork chop.
Right. And there always were interesting sauces too. They were like something lemon or a little bit of cream or whatever. And I know in our notes, we have talked about, we were going to talk about a little bit about the cream cheese. There was a lot of cream cheese in almost every sauce we made. And they don't give you a tub of cream cheese. They give you the little
individual package you used to get with your bagel.
Yeah. Like when you go to Starbucks, you get that little individual packet of cream cheese, or when you like go to the airport or something. And it was always interesting making sauces with those because they always made sure you had exactly the right amount to do that.
Yes, we learned that cream cheese really does make all your meals better because they include it and everything. But I bet you didn't know that the reason that they use cream cheese in their meals is it's a replacement for heavy cream, because they can't really send you a milk or dairy product, and cream cheese
in that box,
in that package, has a long shelf life.
So the one of those meals then are relatively healthy or not then? As healthy as you think they are. I mean, you are taking in a lot of cream cheese.
We'll get into that in the next segment. We're focusing on the positive.
What about
right
flatbreads?
Now. So
flatbreads, veggie flatbreads, sausage flatbreads.
Can you say all that real fast?
Yeah,
but
right.
all the flatbreads, I thought all the flatbreads were wonderful.
Yeah, they were good.
Really taught me, about different sauce bases that you can put on a flatbread instead of just thinking of it as a pizza. I mean, you can do white sauce, garlic sauce, they actually made a tomato sauce mixed with cream cheese, that
That's
was
right.
really good. But it really, is a healthy option with the salad, just to have a small piece of flatbread as a substitute for like pizza.
And those meals were good for summer too, because when they came, obviously, we work longer days in the summer and it's super, super hot out. You don't want to spend a lot of time in the kitchen, but you and I would go in there and we would kind of fix these meals up pretty quick. Matter of fact, I think Alyssa did one of the flatbread ones on her own with bacon or something on there. It was actually really good.
And so now like Sprouts has flatbreads that you can buy. And I even use the naan breads that I get at the grocery store. They come in, white, wheat, or garlic, and you can use those as a base for flatbreads. So that was something that was really good.
Okay.
And one of the things I wanted to mention real quick when I go back to the veggies was they did a broccoli prep in there that I've never done before. And I absolutely loved it. So when you quick stir fry your broccoli, it usually gets that vibrant color.
When you stir fry it?
When you're stir frying
okay.
it. Well, what they did is you stir fry it till it turns bright green, and then you just add a couple tablespoons of water and then stick a lid on it. And then the steam from the water steam cooks the broccoli the rest of the way.
Oh, and it doesn't get all brownish and
Correct.
mushy. Oh, that's a good thing.
So I've never done that.
Yeah. So
I really learned something.
Right. So a positive is you did come away with learning a few new sauces. Matter of fact, there was a few meals that we actually made in this that we kind of hacked, where we took the sauce and we made other pastas with it, and we decided to keep the meal but not make it like the way they sent it to us. So we ended up benefiting a lot from these meals from there. But let's get to this.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
So there were several pasta dishes that came with a Italian chicken sausage. And so obviously ground chicken is healthier than ground pork, which is typically used to make Italian sausage. So just imagine ground chicken with all of the sausage flavorings in it. And that was used to make a lot of the pasta meals, which were healthier because it was ground chicken. So that gave me something to work towards. I would love to figure out how to reverse engineer that, because I really enjoyed the chicken sausage.
Yeah, they do a really good job. That's one of the biggest pros, I think, of this service is they do a really good job in the flavor of their meats for their meals, that you don't have to, you're not putting in 20 spices into this chicken and mixing it up. It's already kind of flavored.
Yeah, it was already done.
And it was good.
Yeah, I liked it.
Okay, here it comes. The negatives. What do you think? What do you think some of the negatives were? And we don't have a whole list of a lot of them, but when we talk about the negatives, we're not here to rip apart the company. We're not.
We got a lot of good things out of it.
We did, but you're also a really good cook. So to say, what was negative about the food is probably not a good match for a fair kind of an assumption for it. But what are some of the things that you found just negative about the experience of this, not necessarily the company?
I feel like the company is focused on customer acquisition and not customer retention. And by that, I mean, they use all these clever marketing, schemes and coupons to sign up the new customer. But for everyone and for every customer that drops or leaves, a new one signs up. So that's the new customers. But I didn't feel like they really wanted to keep me on as an existing customer.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do think they were benefiting a lot from social media. I don't want to say viral videos, but the spread of social media videos of their product was getting a lot of people signing up for their stuff. So I don't think they were really focused on keeping you as a customer. It's kind of like renting people apartments. You
give them a discount up front.
Yeah. And then about 8 months later, you're telling them that their lease is going to be renewed and it's going to be more expensive. And they don't really care because they know you're going to move out and a new person is going to move in. Similar to this.
Yeah.
Too.
So when you get to paying full price for your meals, you really start to think about, is it worth it?
Right. One of the things for me is I thought the meal choices was good food and the food quality was fair. Typically we're purchasing perfect produce. When we go pick it out ourselves, some of the produce that we got in this box, you said,
they've seen better days.
Yeah, they've seen better days. They weren't the greatest. And it wasn't because of our region. It was just because of how they were just throwing this stuff in a box and it was all mix match. But some of that produce just wasn't the top of the line of the stuff that you're going to get. And we had a couple tomatoes that were bad. We had that one, I remember we had a pepper inside. It was all moldy inside there. It was just things that you can't really control when you're kind of at the mercy of this service, that you get this box of food and then you're ready to prep a meal right there.
Right. And one of the boxes, we got a bunch of potatoes and all of the potatoes had big bruises on there. And I felt like I had to spend a lot of time cutting out, the pieces that were bad. Yes, they were still usable. And yes, they gave me a few extra ones, but that's not something I expected with a meal service.
Right.
So, and the meat wasn't the best cut.
Are you talking about that dollar steak?
I planned on talking about the dollar steak.
Let's talk about that in a second because I want to finish with that because that's just a really gross story. But we talked a little bit about, you talked already about the coupons. We had that kind of written down as well. You want to talk about them forcing you to use things. Is there anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, they just make you wait until the end of your promo period to use the discounts. And so I actually made a referral to somebody at work. And they signed up and I got the $20 gift for her signing up. And then I had to wait until my 8-week promo period ended to get my $20. I thought my $20 would be instantly off of my next $80 box.
I have a feeling they do that for people so they don't keep signing up and maybe even under different accounts and different names to kind of keep food coming all the time.
They could.
There's probably a reason behind that.
So they basically had me for 8 weeks until I could finally use my $125 in
But overall,
credits.
I don't think it was a bad experience though. I think it was a pretty decent experience except the dollar steak.
I'm not able to get over that steak. I don't even know if that was steak.
Basically what they did is once in a while they would offer you a deal. And when you're ordering your food online, you're picking your menu out and they will talk about it. And then they offer you a steak for $1 or
chicken for $1
or a couple things like that. And we did the steak that was for $1 and it was absolutely disgusting.
So there's an adage. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Right.
And I felt that applied in this case.
Right.
If you wanted to get the $1 steak and then cook it and give it to your dog, maybe. But
I don't think I'd even do that.
I don't even want to see that steak ever again.
No, I don't either. That was just nasty. What about customer service? Because we talk about the negatives and we did talk a lot about the pros. But with the negatives, you actually had a lot of run-ins with the customer service. There was something that I
reached out to customer service
so go ahead and talk a little bit about that,
because
because
we
that's
had that one box where everything kind of melted, and then we had some other stuff that wasn't exactly right. I did reach out to customer service, and I felt it was excellent. And you want to know why it was so excellent? Because it's AI. It's artificial intelligence. I caught on right away.
Right. And I think one of the things that they were doing was it's the same customer service you see elsewhere where they don't want to deal with a real complaint. So they'd rather just send you more credits to buy more meals.
No, you complain about one potato. AI gives you credit for your whole box back. I'm like, I didn't want credit for the whole box.
Right.
I just wanted to maybe get some new potatoes in my next box. But, one of the problems we had was our chicken opened in shipping. And, that's obviously, non-edible at that point. And so I complained about the chicken and they gave me my entire box back as a credit. Again, credit available to me 8 weeks down the road when my promo period ends. That's how I ended up with
so
125 in credits.
It wasn't like you were getting bad customer service. You were getting good customer service, but they were always keeping you in the world of every plate by making sure that your promo or your free meal that you got because you got bad chicken was being used, but it had to be used on their terms. So that made it really
felt bad about it. I only complained twice, and they gave me credit for my entire box twice. I felt bad because I really didn't want credit for 3 meals. Maybe I only had one bad meal.
And I remember too, this was happening kind of at the end, when we were kind of like wanting to kind of get out of this thing. And it wasn't because of the company and it wasn't because of the food. It was just, we were, and this was one of my negatives actually, but we were finding it was being repetitive.
Yeah. Eventually it did get repetitive.
Yeah. And for people who like different kinds of food, we kind of found out that every week that you were picking your meals for the next week or whatever, it almost seemed like it was just the same meals. And I think it was because the ingredients that they're dealing with are on the cheaper side of ingredients. And then also, I think it was because it's ingredients that don't spoil.
That's true.
They really know what they're doing with their meal planning. They're sending you things that last a little bit longer than normal. So to me, I think that's important to know. But that would be, as I wrap up this part about being negative, I think the only negative thing I found about this entire experience was just the repetitiveness of each of those meals when you were picking them for the week. Because every time you'd ask me, do you want this or do you want that? I was like, well, didn't we just have that? And maybe it wasn't exactly.
Some of that was my fault.
Well, it wasn't really exactly the same exact, but it was always like a pasta and this like sausage something and then a few vegetables. So it was always very paired up the same.
To give them credit, they do have new options and new choices, but I would look at the choice. I'm like, my husband's not going to eat that. So I'd go back to, the ones that we had already tried and liked.
Right. Okay. So as we wrap this up, what are your overall thoughts on this? I mean,
I think there's some real value added benefits to trying one of these services, but overall, I didn't find that it saved me a lot of money, and that's what I was into the service for. So I found it was fun, while it was new. On the other side of that, I felt it forced us to have the 3 meals because we had already paid for them and the ingredients and everything were already there.
Good point. Do I think it's worth it? Yes, I do overall. But I do think there was a headache with it, and I'll tell you one thing about it real quickly. But one is living with a really good cook, an amazing cook. I know you can create a lot better variety of meals, but I think the thing it was worth it. I think because it kind of got you out of your, I don't want to say a funk, maybe a routine. You got out of a routine and you were trying different meals and making different sauces and things, which then you now carry over to the stuff you're doing now. So that definitely benefited. Would I stick with this thing all the time? No. But that's my benefit. But one thing, it was a headache I will talk about real quickly. So when the box would arrive, it would arrive pretty much on the time it said, Wednesday afternoon by 10 or whatever. But when I got that box in and I had to open up the box and I had to go through it all. I had to go put the meats in the refrigerator outside and kind of separate everything in there. That's no easy task. And not to mention, the box was a mess. And sometimes then I'd call you up and said, hey, this chicken's leaking or something's wrong or we might be
But you did a really good job doing it.
It was done. It was done. So
I found that some of these meal choices that we had were fairly carb heavy. And we tend to be more carb conscious. And, there's a lot of pasta meals, which surprised me, pasta and rice, So we try not to have too much of that during the week if we can help it.
That's true. That's true. That's one thing that we'll kind of probably take away from this most of all is I do recommend it. I do recommend trying it for somebody who is learning how to cook. And again, we talked about all the pros and the negatives about that. But the thing with me is it brought me closer to my wife in the kitchen. We had a lot of fun doing it. Our daughter did too. So again, this podcast is just one of those ones that we wanted to do to really explore the route of going in and trying a meal service and just seeing where it took our family.
Yeah, I wanted to know if this is like the future of cooking because it seems like it's not just a trend. I'm seeing more and more companies sign up and you're seeing a lot more competition. And one of the things I got in the mail, from HelloFresh, they must have known that I was an Every Plate customer, but it says 16 free meals, first box ships free, and free breakfast for life.
Yeah.
Why don't I sign up for this? But, there's a lot of these things that are coming up on social media and a lot of different meals. And they're not all stuff that you prepare yourself. They're actually selling pre-made meals that you just microwave now.
Right.
Too.
And I think the surge of that, this could be a whole other topic and we'll wrap up here. But I do think the surge of what you're talking about is coming from the expense and the drastic changes of what's going on with like Grubhub and DoorDash and all them. Mm-hmm. Did I say Grubhub and DoorDash and those type of foods, those Uber Eats, those have exploded with inflation of how much it costs to order that kind of food.
Right.
So I do think a lot of people are trying to do this stuff at home, make their own meals and go from there. But yeah, anything else?
No, I think we about covered everything.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. And this is, again, it's been a fun episode. We're not dissing Everplate. And we just want to talk about the aspects of this and the service and what it meant to us. But, as well, as a trend itself. And that's what this show's about. We talk about trends in social media and then the benefits of it, which is, it's fair.
Right. But if you're thinking about trying one of these food services, also, the information we've shared is giving you a real glimpse into, what it really entails.
Well, like you said too, are we going to see more options out there, more companies, starting up these type of services, how they fix the things that are broken about it, how they compete with each other and be more of a variety of food. It'll be interesting to see where this goes. So
yeah,
cool. All right. Well, let us know. Shoot us a message on Instagram or at CupCloud or hit us up at Twitter at CupCloud Podcast. And we'd love to hear your thoughts about this and talk about this unique experience with this meal delivery service. And we would just love to hear your stories or your experiences with anything that you have with these different experiences or different, these companies, whether it's, what are the four main ones you think? Every Plate, HelloFresh. They own each other, I think, by the way. And then there's another one that does some prepared meals. But if you have any of those stories, please share them with us. And also, too, do not forget to subscribe to our podcast. So thank you so much for listening to the CupCloud Podcast. Make sure you visit us on Instagram at CupCloud for photos from this episode. We are also on Twitter, which is at CupCloud Podcast. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. We're now on iHeartRadio, Apple, and Google Podcasts. So if you enjoyed our show, please rate and review. And if you have a question or comment, please reach out to us on social media. We would love to hear from you. So join us next time on the CupCloud.